Your Chinese supplier might be cheating you with every order. It starts with the perfect sample, but then they slowly downgrade your materials. A problem called quality fade. Your standard purchase agreement won't protect you from the bad reviews and your brand damage. But don't worry, I'm about to walk you through 5 critical contract clauses you absolutely must use to make your product quality bulletproof and stop this scam for good. The first and honestly most common mistake people make is being vague about their materials. Your contract might say something like high quality PU leather or durable ABS plastic. To a factory that's looking to cut costs, this is a wide open invitation to play games. High quality is very subjective. Their definition of it might be a whole lot different from yours, especially when their profit margin is on the line. When your material descriptions are vague, what happens is you get products made from low grade materials that look fine on the surface but feel completely under stress. Your customers get angry, your return rates go through the roof, and your brand gets a reputation for being cheap. Now, good thing I got a solution. The solution is what I call the hyper-specific material clause. It's not just a single sentence. It's a detailed technical sheet that becomes a legally binding part of your contract. You have to define your materials with scientific precision. So, an example will be writing ABS plastic. You need to specify 100% ABS, grade PA757 from manufacturer X with a melt flow index of 22 grams per minute and Pantone color code 19-4052 TCX for color matching. Another saying is stainless steel. Specify the exact grade. Stainless steel 304 with a chromium content of 18 to 20% and a nickel content of 8 to 10%. Now, this level of detail does 2 things. First, it removes every last bit of uncertainty. The factory knows exactly what you expect. Second, it gives you an objective standard you can actually test against. If you specify 18% chromium and their material only has 16%, they are in clear breach of contract. This clause is your foundation. Without it, the rest of it is pointless. Okay, so now you've defined your materials perfectly. That's a fantastic first step. But a clause is just words on paper if you can't verify that your supplier is actually following it. Factories know a lot of buyers, especially smaller ones, never actually check. They will sign the contract and then just hope for the best. This lack of enforcement means a factory can agree to your hyper-specific clause and then just ignore it. They know you're thousands of miles away and probably won't check. They will use the cheaper stuff anyway, pocket the difference and ship you a subpar product. Now, my solution is a powerful right to inspect and audit clause. This clause has to state very clearly that you or your designated agent have the right to conduct inspections at any stage of production. This includes checking raw materials before they're even used, checking on things mid-production to catch issues early, and of course, a final pre-shipment inspection. Your clause should also grant you the right to conduct unannounced factory audits. This stops them from cleaning up the place and putting on a show for a scheduled visit. You need to see the real factory, not just the performance. What this clause actually does is it sends a clear message that you aren't a buyer who trusts blindly. You're a professional who knows exactly what you want and you do verify. This completely shifts the mental balance. The risk of getting caught and losing a good deal is now very real, which makes them far less likely to cheat in the first place. Even with the right to inspect, how can you be sure the plastic is really grade PA757 or the seal is truly 304 grade? You can't tell by just looking at it. And let's be honest, any test report the factory gives you can be easily faked. Another problem is that visual inspections just aren't enough to check material composition. You could be paying for premium materials while getting cheap junk, and you'd have no idea until your products start falling apart. You're essentially flying blind, trusting the very supplier who has a financial incentive to lie to you. The solution? Mandate a third-party testing right in your contract. This clause states that for every single production run, a random sample chosen by your inspector will be sent to an independent accredited lab for material analysis. Your contract needs to spell out who picks the lab, who pays for it, and what happens based on the results. For example, a sample from each batch will be tested by an accredited lab like SGS or Bureau Veritas, chosen by the buyer. If the material fails to meet the specs in the material specification sheet, the supplier is responsible for the cost of the test, and the entire production order will be subject to the penalties in Clause X. This is your ultimate test. It's an unbiased scientific proof of what you're getting. And yes, it costs money. Maybe maybe a few $100s per test, but think of that as an incredibly cheap insurance policy compared to the thousands of dollars you could lose from a bad production run, a product recall, or the permanent damage to your brand. This clause proves you're serious and you know what you need. All right, so now let's say your lab comes back, right? The test comes back and shows the material is low grade. What happens? What do you do then? If your contract doesn't lay out clear, concise penalties, a factory might still roll the dice. Without a real financial penalty, a factory might see downgrading material quality as a risk worth taking. This leads to a complete headache because now you find a massive quality issue, but the supplier just refuses to take responsibility. They delay, make excuses, and blame their own suppliers. Meanwhile, you've got a container full of defective products, customers are waiting, and your cash is all tied up. You have zero leverage. The solution is a crystal clear penalty and cost recovery clause. This clause has to be bold and specific. It needs to spell out exactly what happens if the supplier messes up. Don't just say they're liable for damages. You have to spell it out. Your clause should include things like rejection of goods. The buyer has the right to reject the entire shipment if a certain percentage of goods are defective or non-compliant. Cost recovery. The supplier is responsible for all costs related to the failure. This includes the inspection fees, lab testing costs, shipping the goods back, and any rework or sorting fees. Liquidated damages. For every day the shipment is delayed because of these failures, a specific dollar amount penalty is applied. Cancellation right. If a quality failure is bad enough, or if it happens more than once, the buyer has the right to cancel the entire contract. No penalty to you. This clause instantly turns a quality failure from being your problem into their problem. When a factory manager looks at this, they will do the math and realize that cutting corners just isn't worth the risk. Finally, the reality is the quality of your first order doesn't guarantee the quality of your future orders. A supplier might perform perfectly on the small trial order to win your trust, only to begin the quality fade process on all the bigger orders that follow. This leaves you in a cycle of uncertainty. Every new order feels like a gamble. You can't scale your business with confidence if you can't rely on your product consistency. Your brand becomes unpredictable and customers lose faith. The solution is a clause that legally binds every production unit to that approved master sample. The clause should say something like, the quality, materials, construction, and performance of all units in all production orders must be identical to the approved pre-production master sample. Any deviation from this master sample, unless approved in writing by the buyer, will be considered a defect and will trigger the penalties outlined in the penalty and cost recovery clause. To make this actually work, you need a physical process. Keep copies of your master sample. Send one to your inspection company to use as the control for all future inspections. Keep one for yourself and have the factory sign and seal another one to keep on site as your reference. Photograph and document every single detail of that sample. What this process does is remove all vagueness. The standard is no longer just an idea. It's a physical thing your third-party inspector can hold in their hand and compare directly to the mass-produced units. Is the color a little bit off? That's a fail. Is the stitching different? Fail. Is the product lighter than the sample? That is also a fail. It is simple, direct, and incredibly effective at stopping that slow decline in quality. So, to sum it all up, the 5 pillars of a contract that actually protects you. 1. Being hyper-specific about your materials. 2. Giving yourself the right to inspect and audit their work. 3. Mandating third-party lab tests to get the truth. 4. Creating severe penalties for cheating. And 5. Legally tying every single unit to your approved master sample. Putting these strategies into your contract will fundamentally change your relationship with your suppliers. You go from a position of hoping for the best to a position of control. Now, this isn't about being difficult. It's just about being professional. Good suppliers will respect this level of detail and see you as a serious long-term partner they want to work with. With the bad suppliers, they will get scared off, which is exactly what you want. You're protecting your investment, your brand, and most importantly, your customers. It's time you stop trusting and start verifying. Your business depends on it. If you want more advice on building a profitable and reliable supply chain, make sure you subscribe. I drop videos like this every week to help you navigate the product sourcing world. See you in the next one.